thanks everyone for joining this morning. And today I'll just go through a few admin items first, and then afterwards we'll get stuck into the plan for today, which is talking about time management, especially in this time of distance learning and of this pandemic. So I guess the first thing that I'll say is, again, if you have not accessed Blackboard, maybe you want to log in now, because everything that we are going to work with today is listed under the Zoom call for today. I'll go through those things in careful detail here in a minute. But before I do that, I just wanted to remind you, for those who, for whatever reason, either did not attend the studio hour on Thursday, the Zoom call for our the second part of our class, which is the studio hour with Jessica. She always puts up the recording of the lesson, so you all have this link. I sent it at various intervals during the semester, and it's also up in the announcements on Blackboard. So basically, if you were not in that class and you didn't for some reason do the financial literacy reflection, or you don't know where to post it now that you have done it, go to the meeting for April 30th, which was last Thursday, and here's the video that she made to show how to complete the reflection, and then how to post it as well. And as stated by me on the document, and also by her in the class, the reflection was due last Friday. If you can't find it for some reason anymore, it's right here. Let me just find it. It's right here from last week's call information. And just a reminder that I gave you guys a master calendar that I've actually updated here a little bit, because I postponed the time management work. So on the master calendar, you see there that the financial literacy reflection was due May 1st, and it was for 5% of your grade. I drastically decreased the amount of things that are being done compared to what the syllabus requires. So it is important that you actually do the stuff that we're doing week by week here, because it's going to count towards your grade in the end to be able to pass this class and pass it well. Again, I'm trying to be somewhat accommodating this semester, understanding that people are having difficulties keeping up with things and remembering what to do and when and so on. And that's also why we're talking about time management right now. So if for some reason you completely lost your way and you know that things are due and you haven't done them, please email me separately so that we can work through getting you to get up to date. The purpose of this class is not for me to be trying to fail people or whatever. That's absolutely not why we're here. The purpose of the class is obviously to learn, but also to support you, which is why we went through all the stuff to do with course selection and so on, and to support you for the financial piece. It was support during this time where many people are facing all kinds of financial issues. And then with time management, of course, we've gone into a different paradigm now with distance learning. So just trying to see, excuse me, where we are and how we can maybe manage our time even better during what is essentially the last month, the last 4 weeks of classes before the end of the semester. At this point, does anybody have any questions for me on anything that I've just said about either the deadline or about the seminar portfolio? Go ahead. I heard someone say something.
Yes. So the remainder of the assignments are all on ePortfolio.
Yeah, so everything, so nothing has to be deposited into Blackboard, which is why I made this distinction. Some of the, the classwork that we did early on when you guys were kind of still figuring things out about your major and career and so on, it was deposited in Blackboard, but everything else now you will just deposit in your ePortfolio, and some of the prompts are even on ePortfolio itself. So you would just type right there on ePortfolio while you're in the studio hour. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions? Okay, so every deadline has shifted back by 1 week now, except for the final video presentation. The final video, I haven't written up the prompt for that yet, but it's literally going to be like a 60-second video where you will be asked to just do your elevator pitch, which means that, if you think about it, let's say you get into an elevator and someone who you really want to work for or work with is in the elevator with you, and the elevator is going to take about 60 seconds to get to where you need to go. What will you say, right, while you're in that elevator, to try and pitch or present yourself to this person as someone that should be hired by them to work in whatever capacity? So again, the last two things that we're doing, and even some of the things we did before, I'm trying really to gear us towards work. And for those of you who maybe now need to find work, or you have a job but you're trying to get a different job, especially in the in this time of COVID and even in the post COVID world, a lot of things have changed. So we want to be thinking about how we can be smart in terms of marketing whatever skills we have through a resume, LinkedIn, whatever the case may be, to try and make sure that we are as employable as possible. So we go here from time management to thinking about, our learning and trying to find the resources that we need online that the campus provides to support more of our learning. And then, what can you do to strengthen your resume through activities that are happening that aren't exactly class, but could be other things. And I know everyone's super busy and you might think, well, I don't have time to do that, but this is kind of just planning to say, what are some of the things that I could be doing in the future, so that when someone looks at my resume and it's between me and another person, I might have, some activities that that make me stand out, right, from the crowd. So that's kind of what we're doing, for the rest of the semester. And I just wanted to show you, I actually emailed these things to myself. Those of you who are on Slack, you would have seen this anyway, sent by the Student Technology Mentor. But basically there's two, or well, not two, well, there were two sets of information that went out. This is the second one, which was just talking about Apple coming to LaGuardia Community College virtually. So there are virtual sessions where Apple is actually going to speak to students, one of them tomorrow. No, sorry, next week, Wednesday. I'm already a week ahead of us. Next week, Wednesday at 11 a.m., what it takes to stand out. So it's actually tying in nicely with what we're talking about with resume building, interviewing and best practices. I'll put these things up on the announcements as well, because you would have to click a button to register. So if you didn't see it in Slack, or you are not on Slack, I'll also send it via the announcements on Blackboard. And then on the Thursday, it's another session talking about all the job opportunities that are available in Apple Retail. So of course, at the moment, we're all at home and no one's, going to the store, whatever. But, I guess the hope here is that eventually we will get out and we will be able to, people will be able to go back to work in various capacities. So that might be something that you want to think about and plan for from a job perspective. And then the second one that I wanted to bring up here, this the email is going to look a little bit chaotic because I literally copied and pasted this from Slack. I have spoken about this before, but I'll just mention it again, that there is this, these, they call them virtual circles and other support events that are happening. There's one happening today from 1 to 2:30. None of these things are mandatory, okay? So I'm not telling you that you have to attend them. I'm just providing information. So there's a distance learning, you are not alone. It's basically to talk about, your situation, moving to distance learning, what people are struggling with, how they can support each other, and so on. I won't advertise this because this is during our class, but other than that, there are other virtual support circles that follow, a pattern of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so like right through the week, basically, on all kinds of stuff, loss and grief, stress, mindfulness, pregnancy, social anxiety. There's even virtual dog therapy, there's Tai Chi, and so on. So I'll also put this up on our on the announcements, but just to let you know that these are some of the supports that exist. Let me just see, where did all my stuff go now? Oh, I should not have done that. Now I've lost my setup. That's okay. Let me just double check that yeah, okay. I really did lose everything. All right. So any questions about the supplementary supports that I was just talking about, or are we good? Okay. So for anybody who wasn't on here last week, there are a few people. I just want to do a quick check-in with, I already spoke to Steve. Let me just see. I think I saw Hire Camposano on here. Hire Anastasia, Alexis, and Karen Alvarado. I'm wondering if you could just tell me whether you've already registered for the next semester, or whether you know when your registration opens. Anybody can start talking.
Hello.
Hi, yes, who's talking?
Anastasia.
Hi, Anastasia, okay.
Yes, my registration was open like in the end of April.
Yeah.
And I started looking for classes.
Yeah.
I have a question because I want to know if we, and maybe you don't know, but I'm still waiting to know if we're gonna be completely online during the fall or no.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and we're all, even faculty, unfortunately asking the same. And I got an email sometime in last week that said that the Board of Trustees, which is kind of like the people who are in charge of CUNY, still have not made that decision. We don't know, because they're basically, I guess, trying to see where we end up, especially I think after May the 15th, right? To see if the curve stays flat, or what's going to happen. The biggest, I guess, prohibitor to reopening also is the fact that the classes are, I mean, at LaGuardia it's a little bit different because we have classes that are slightly smaller, like 20-something or 30-something students. But at most of the other senior schools, like the 4-year schools, you're talking about classes with sometimes, hundreds of students. So, the issue then becomes, that it's almost impossible to social distance appropriately when you've got that many people in one space. So I'm sorry to say that we still are in limbo, but we are. And in fact, last week Monday, I was on a call with the president and the provost of LaGuardia, and they also said that they still await information from CUNY. And I guess our challenge is that we're part of such a big college system. It's not just LaGuardia that has to make the decision, and that the senior schools start their fall semester in August. So they have to make a decision even sooner, and depending on what they decide, it will likely be that everybody will just do the same thing. So at this stage, it's up in the air with what I perceive possibly a leaning towards distance learning again, unless something really incredible happens with the rate of infection, that's taking place.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, that it's probably not going to change because even if we open like in June or something, and it's not even guaranteed that we're going to open in June, by August, not everybody will be like completely ready to return to mass gatherings and all of this.
By June, oh, you mean if the city opens in June, or you meant the
Yeah.
college? Yeah. It's and that's the issue, even if we're okay. Even if we're okay, like to be able to move around the city and all of those things, the challenge with a college is the sheer volume of people that are coexisting in a confined space. And I think they might perceive that, okay, we could open for face-to-face learning in the fall, and then 2 or 3 weeks in find that there's an infection. And remember, if there's an infection on the campus, then the whole place has to shut down and be cleaned and whatever. So then we'll move to distance learning at that point. So it's all these difficult decisions to be made. As soon as I know anything, I'll tell you guys. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, so Alexis said, no, you did not register yet. Is it, well, I'll just type back to you. And is Karen Alvarado still on this call? Have you registered yet? I don't know if she can hear me. Okay, and Hire, are you with us? Okay, I will wait for them to get back to me. Okay, so then that's the check-in with registration. So we can start now with this week's plan, which is time management. I'm trying to remember now if the people who asked me for this are actually on the call. Well, I know Tanisha was on the call last week. I don't see Jeremy Gomez, but nevertheless, Tanisha and the few other people that may have also asked for this. You had spoken about last week when we were speaking about investing. Remember, we were talking about having some type of maybe additional resources about how to invest and what to invest in. So I did find a fairly short-ish article, but there are additional supplementary materials, an article on investing basics on a website called investopedia.com. So you're welcome to read that and then to explore further on the left-hand side of the page. You may also remember last week I spoke about how none of us are really smart enough to beat the market. So for the most part, we look to exchange-traded funds or index funds that are tracking the market or tracking some sector. And then I said to you that you may want to consider comparing these funds before investing in anything. So this exchange traded funds database, sorry, there we go, actually tracks the ETFs, some of them, by performance, which is probably your best bet. Also looking at the cost of the ETF, by dividend yield, if you're looking for dividends and so on. So that might be a good resource to at least to start, right? to say, okay, well, now that I've learned a little bit about investing, I'm interested in investing in an ETF, but I want to look at the rankings of the ETFs. And then the final piece, which I think it was Andal and Jeremy, who were on the call last week, was saying that, and this is open to anybody who wants to do this as well, even if you weren't on the call last week about it, about financial literacy. Investopedia has an investment simulator that you can join, where you can actually actually join the 2020 game. And what it is you get given $100,000 of virtual money, and you can basically take that money and invest it however you want, in stocks, in ETFs, in all kinds of financial instruments. And the simulator is tracking what's happening in the market, so you can actually see how you do in relation to the market. And it helps you to begin to see, the impacts of different things that happen in the market on your investment portfolio, with no risk, because obviously it's not real money, it's virtual money that you are being given. So the way to get to this is that you just register on investopedia.com to go into the simulator, and once you're in the simulator, it will bring up a page that shows all the games that are currently active, and you're looking for the 2020 game, and you join it. There are many people who are playing it, so what's also interesting is you can poke around and see other people's investment portfolios and see what they're up to and what their returns look like. All right, so these are items from last week's call that people had asked me for, because they're interested in even a little bit of dabbling in investing. Any questions on these resources? All right. So today we'll talk a little bit about time management, and well, not a little bit, a lot about time management, and how we manage our time in general, but also especially how we manage our time now that we've moved to distance learning and so on. So we'll start the work with just thinking, and it doesn't have to be 10 minutes, it can be more than 10 minutes that we're spending to just think through these questions, right? How do you currently track your time spent on tasks, if at all? So by tasks, I mean anything. And I know that Jeremy is not on the call, but last time he gave such an interesting talking point, where he said sometimes when he gets into one subject, he finds it difficult, to pivot to another class or whatever. So he ends up sometimes spending the whole day on the work for one class. So the question is, are you measuring your time by putting a stopwatch? Are you measuring your time at all? Or are you saying, I'm going to spend 1 hour doing school work and then do something else? So think about that. Do you think you have a good idea of how you spend your time? I'm just going through the questions, and then you guys will have time to actually write down your answers to this. And we're doing this to build up to the point of coming up with better strategies, maybe to manage our time. How has your time management changed since LaGuardia changed to distance learning? So believe it or not, it feels like a lifetime ago, but March 11th, which was a Wednesday, was the last day we had face-to-face classes. So since then, our worlds have changed drastically for many of us. And, think a little bit about how your time management has changed. Or maybe for you, it's gotten better because now you don't have to commute for 2 hours to get to school or whatever. It can be positive or negative. Do you believe that you're currently managing your time well? Why or why not? Why do you consider good time management to be important during this time of crisis, right? We are, in a pandemic, we are in crisis, which we have to bear in mind. And you know, especially for some of us, it might be like, do I really have to do a class on time management right now? I actually have so much to do. But we're building, you know, foundation for hopefully the next 4 weeks as classes finish up, that maybe if you need to implement some new strategies, you can. And then, just like Anastasia was talking about when she was asking me the question, we don't know whether for the fall we may possibly have to be in online distance learning again. And so maybe some of the learning that you have now about managing your time, if you do have to go to distance learning again, can actually be beneficial. What are currently the 2 to 3 most important areas of your life right now? So, you know, you could say anything there. It doesn't have to be school. We're asking this to just see if what you value is lining up with how you spend your time. So if I say, you know, right now, my family and work are the most important, and I do my, you know, my time tracker, and I find out that I'm actually, you know, on point with that, then it's like, great, you know, what I value is lining up with how I spend my time. Or I might say my work and family are important, but then when I start tracking my time, I realize that I'm spending a lot of time, you know, watching TV and on social media. Then maybe there's something I can change if I want to. Does your time management reflect how much you value these areas and how? And we may only answer this question after we fill out our tracker. How can you help yourself through tools or supports or conversations with loved ones to manage your time better? And I just want to show you, before you go into the time to actually think about this, I just want to show you that eventually we're working towards, and this document is also on Blackboard. So again, anybody who's not on Blackboard right now, I encourage you to actually go in there and download this. We're working towards tracking our schedule for a week, even if you have to guess at some of this. And I know for some, you know, our situation has changed since the days when we could actually go outside freely. But I did mine for one day, and you can see that basically it shows you up on a chart what you're spending most of your time on. So eventually we'll get there. Excuse me. But for now, we're just going to, where's my thing now? Okay. But for now, we're just going to answer these questions. Does anybody have any point of clarification on this? All right. So what I'm going to do, and I'm always a little bit worried when I do this that I'll mess something up, but I'm going to break us up into small groups. You guys can work individually for the 10 minutes, and then after that, you'll be able to talk to each other about your time spent, and then we'll come back, and the small groups can report out. And I know from the previous times that people can't take the questions into the small groups. So I'll try to paste them into the notice area for the group. And Alexis, I'll talk to you more when we come back. I see that you responded to me. Okay, I'm just gonna, just bear with me 1 second, yeah. Okay, so we have, some rooms have 4 people, which is fine. I'm going to open all the rooms. You'll get a request to join the room. And then I will, if you haven't downloaded the activity from Blackboard, I'll also put the questions into, I guess, a message system that comes up for every room. And then I'll give you 10 minutes to to answer the questions on your own, and then you guys can have another 5 to 10 minutes to discuss amongst yourselves about your time management, and then we'll come back as a large group to report out. Any questions, clarification questions before I put you in the rooms? All right. Steve and Elena, you guys have to accept the invitation. All right. I see you, Jade.
I don't think I have like a good attention span. So it's like, I guess when I'm more, I guess inner, like, I don't know, when my mind is really into it, that's when I really get my work done.
Mm-hmm.
But I should follow, like you said, to set up certain times where I know this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. So am I understanding correctly that at the moment you don't have really a set schedule, so you're to some extent leaning on your own energy levels to get you through? Is that a good summary of what you're saying?
Yeah, because I know if I'm like not into it, I'm not gonna get anything done. Like if I have to read a passage, like my mind is gonna be like elsewhere, and I'm gonna have to keep reading and rereading over again. So it's like I rather just. I mean, I still get it done on time or whatever, but it's mainly like last minute. That's when I'm suddenly energized. Like last minute, like a few
Yeah,
hours.
I mean the classic. Yeah, I mean that's human nature, right? The classic procrastination mode.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. I
and
mean, I think there's room in this time also to some extent for self-compassion. I think we are probably even more distracted,
right.
now than we would be under normal circumstances. I actually, just to share personally, have been stunned by at times how distracted I could be. I'm normally a person and not so much in the lecture, of course, but I mean like in the day to day. I'm normally very focused and can focus on a task, and I've struggled a lot with distraction. So I just want to, echo what you're saying, that sometimes it's it's difficult to stay on task, and you actually just have to walk away, and come back. But I do have a schedule, but I give myself, some grace for when I really feel like just the circumstances that we're living in are not making it possible for me to work. But what if all the deadlines end up at the same time? Like now we're coming to the end of the semester. What's your plan going to be?
On my
Because,
plan, I
go
guess
ahead.
like throughout the week, like throughout that week, or not. I'm not gonna wait till that week, but I'm not gonna try to just do everything all at once.
Mm,
Like I probably spend like that whole week, like just making sure I get everything done. Like
mm,
each day of the week to make sure I do what I need to do. Even if I have to go to work with my laptop, while I'm
mm.
at whatever.
Oh, you're still working in the midst of this
Yeah.
as well. Oh boy. Okay. I got you. All right. Anybody else who wants to share some of your findings um, in this time of distance learning, or having to, spend time with childcare or looking after family members, illness, etc. Anything that is standing out for you about how you're managing your time?
Professor, I just wanted to speak out on because I was part of that group with Tanisha, and yeah, time management. For me, I can't say I've been really great on it. I just been mostly with classes. I've been on task to tasks,
Mm,
completing every task that I can. But like as Jeremy said, though, the urgency sometimes of getting these things done is
mm,
what's making me complete as well. But I feel like if I do set a time, I'm not sure if I'm gonna always possibly go accordingly to it.
mm,
Like you said, so many distractions
mm,
throughout the day. You know, you plan for
mm-hmm,
something and sometimes it doesn't go out the way you want it to.
mm-hmm.
Definitely, there's so much you could do in a day as well, right?
Right,
But
right.
definitely the tasks, getting them done by done as much as I can, and as well, giving me my space to breathe as well, But
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. Scheduling a time hasn't really worked for me as long as I know I have to get these certain things done, and I just try to get as much as I can when
Mm.
I can, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think different, maybe to some extent, different things are going to work for different people in the sense that some people can actually work throughout the day without having maybe a formal schedule, but they'll still be able to get stuff done. However, at that point, you also have to make sure that you've kept track of all deadlines, what they truly are, because you may find, excuse me, and that's why I made that master calendar for us, that something could slip through the cracks, if you don't have a formal schedule, and then last minute this, and when I'm saying this, Steve, I'm not necessarily talking just to you, I'm talking to all of us. Last minute discover that there was something that should have been done because it wasn't scheduled in properly, you may have forgotten about it or whatever. So I mean, it can go both ways. Some people feel oppressed by schedule that is line after line of things you have to do. I think we have to be realistic as human beings and as students, and even me as faculty, that there's no way that anybody's going to be able to sit for 8 hours and just do work, non-stop studying. Maybe you can do that, maybe that's how you operate, but for the most part, especially in this time of grief and anxiety and crisis that we are in, we actually need mental health breaks throughout the day. And the one thing that I'll say, and I mean, I speak from personal experience, is to find ways to have a break that actually involves maybe some type of movement or some type of something that's a little bit more uplifting than necessarily just like plopping yourself in front of the couch. Because as I'm sure some of you can attest to this, for me it's like if I decide I'm taking a break and I'm watching TV, I may never get up from the couch again, because there's just episode after episode is just rolling through. And then most of the evening is gone, or half of the afternoon is gone, and I could have done something else. So schedule in everything, like schedule in that you should have some entertainment, that you should have some leisure, that you need to sleep, and try to think for the next 4 weeks what makes a good balance for yourself. When are your classes that you have to take synchronously, like this class, schedule that in, and then around that you can figure out what you do for the rest of the day. I'm especially harping on about this because for those of us who do plan to continue in the fall, and hopefully that's most of you, you do have the challenge that you may end up in a distance learning situation again. As difficult as that prospect is for most of us, is including me, to accept, and building these fundamentals in now might help you to have a better hold and handle on your time when the fall rolls around. So what I'd say is you might want to try it, Steve. I know you said you're not one for putting stuff down on the schedule. Maybe try it and see if that's something that might work for you. But there's we will go through a weekly tracker now together that you guys have to fill out, where you can kind of get an idea of how you spend your time. I think the reason I'm talking about writing stuff down in a schedule is that for all of us, sometimes the way we think we spend our time is somewhat different to how we actually spend our time. Some of us think we're not doing enough, and we're actually doing way more than we can handle. And that's where the stress is coming from. Uh, what about the last breakout room? I don't know if Elena and Jai and I think Andel was in there, but I don't see him on the call anymore. Did you guys discover anything in your breakout room about your time management? Elena and Jai Chen, any pointers you want to give us?
Well, me personally, you were asking about anybody dealing with like childcare and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That would be me.
Mm-hmm.
It was easier to track my time and to do things differently when I was physically in school because at
Yeah,
the same time, my daughter was in school and she's in
yeah,
pre-K.
yeah,
So, they have so much they have to do, and now that they're doing also distance learning, I have to keep up
yeah.
with the
You're
work.
homeschooling.
Yeah, I
Oh,
have to keep
okay.
up with the assignments that they're giving her, and
Yeah,
it's like she doesn't want to do it with me because she says that I'm not her teacher. So it's
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
difficult and it's stressful to
Of
try
course.
and get her work done and have my work done at the same time.
Right. And the children are used to this boundary that home is kind of, for the most part, fun where you can relax and decompress and so on. Home is not school, and now suddenly home has become school, right? Which is why
Yes,
there's that resistance saying, you're not the teacher. Why is mommy the teacher now? And also you've got the added stress that if she's in pre-K, if she's going to have to go to K next year, you have to meet certain milestones, right? For her to be
I have,
able to get
yeah,
into
right.
kindergarten. Yeah, man.
I already did the application process. I did it early for her kindergarten, and now
Mm-hmm.
I started to receive the confirmation letters of what
Mm-hmm.
school she will be going to. But either way,
Mm-hmm.
there are requirements I need to meet, like
Mm-hmm.
proof of address and documents
Mm-hmm.
from her doctor. So
Yeah.
I
All the
it's a little
admin.
bit stressful.
Mm-hmm. Not a little, a lot, because the decisions and stuff just came out the other day. I know. So you've got a lot on your plate. So some others who may not have shared, you might have the same situation where it's either your child or a sibling or someone that you have to help through the homeschooling or crisis schooling process with all their assignments. You're trying to do your work. They have their work. I have a child as well. She's 3. She doesn't have assignments to turn in, but she's incredibly active and busy. And when I'm not on these calls, I have to watch her and then hope that I can get some of my work done. And it's not always the case because she's always engaged in some type of risky activity, and the last thing I want to do is go to the ER right now. So I have to watch her like a hawk. So I get it.
Yes.
I get it. And we have to, again, like I said to myself, I made all these schedules for her and how I was going to homeschool her, and I became very overwhelmed by that and my own work. And I'm sure others, if you're looking after other family members or whatever, it's incredibly overwhelming. And
Yes.
you have to build in grace, whether it's for childcare or schoolwork, whatever. You have to have some self-compassion to say that this is a pandemic. This is not like me sitting at home, just relaxing and doing my work from home. We're incredibly mentally taxed in so many ways and emotionally drained by what's happening around us, that at some points we just have to say, you know what, I'm doing my best, and my best will just have to be enough. And if you are struggling with classes, I think you really need to reach out to professors to say, I'm not keeping up. I'd like to keep up. What are ways in which I can, this is my situation, and what are the ways in which I can I guess make up for whatever I'm missing. I get emails like that all the time, and I'm open to it because of the state that we all are in. So even for this class, if you know that there are things that you missed and you're not keeping up, just contact me and I'll work with you, and I'll have grace for you like I have to have grace for myself and even my daughter, because we're all struggling together.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you are seen, Elena, and the rest of you as well, guys. For those who are doing okay, I'll be happy to hear that. But understand that if you're not doing okay, it's okay to not be okay, as the saying goes, and you can talk to me about it. And maybe if you have specific classes that you are struggling with, or the professor's not being responsive, I can try to support you by contacting the person on your behalf. My biggest aim and goal is to make sure that people stay in school and that you're successful and that you can graduate. So whatever that takes, we have to try to do together. All right. So thank you for sharing about how you spend your time and what you found. The next step for us is to just download, if you haven't already. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. If you haven't already, this weekly schedule tracker. Where do you find it? It's in the Zoom call materials, and it's under weekly schedule tracker over here. Please download this Excel spreadsheet or download it into Google Docs or whatever you need to do to make it happen. I think there's also a link over here where you can download it, but I already downloaded it for you and just put it into our Zoom materials. I'll give you 3-4 minutes to download that first. If you already downloaded, you can start populating it, but let me just give people a few minutes to get onto Blackboard and download it.
Professor, we only have to download the weekly schedule, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there's probably another 30 seconds left if people haven't downloaded it yet. You're just downloading, it's an Excel sheet. Do you have something that looks like this? I mean,
Yeah.
I already started populating mine, so yours should just be blank, right?
Yeah, it is blank.
Okay, cool. And Jeremy, I know that you joined late. You were on the financial literacy call last week, and I promised to give you guys more information about resources for investing. So these are the resources over here. If you want to hear what I said about them, when I post the recording, you can just go right to the beginning of the discussion. It's all there.
Oh, okay. But Professor, your mic is a little like try connecting it and reconnecting it. 'Cause it's not your voice. It sounds.
It was sounding like scratchy.
Okay, hang on. Let me stop the share and fix this. Okay. I'm gonna go to the internal mic so it's not dependent on the.
Good.
Much
Good
better.
now.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's because I was on the um the earbud mic, and if it moves against my face and stuff, it gets dodgy. All right. Okay, let me just go back into, thanks for telling me that. I can't, when I talk, I just hear myself. I don't hear how it comes across to you guys. All right. So is there anybody who has not yet downloaded this tracker? Okay. So I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll just go through it and talk about the purpose of doing this. The schedule tracker is just for you to begin to input how you think you spend your time in any given day, and then it will eventually obviously accumulate for the whole week. And it's talking about uh, realistic and reasonable plans for how you spend the week. I would prefer to think about it of, instead of like how you would like to spend your time, how you think you spend your time right now. Now I know that in this time of distance learning and being at home and being on lockdown and whatnot, there are probably some things that we are not doing as much as, things like going to the LaGuardia campus and so on. But I mean, for this Al LaGuardia, if you have lectures like ours that are synchronous, that are happening in real time, you can put those down. Like if some of your classes actually meet in real time online, you have some time where you do schoolwork or you study. If you volunteer in any way when you go to work, when are you sleeping? If there's any type of travel maybe related to going to work or something like that. Family obligations could be anything, including minding your child or children, siblings, taking care of relatives, people who are ill, and so on. Anything that you do with the community, leisure, social, meals, physical exercise, grooming, so showering, whatever you have to do to get yourself ready for the day. So I did mine just to, kind of just give it a whirl. I've done it before, but just to show you guys. So the time is in half-hour increments. So basically, you can jump between different activities, based on how your day goes. I noticed for mine that most of my time now, I have a very set block of time when I work, because my husband has to work before and after this. Most of my time is now, do you see this F? Most of it is spent watching my daughter. Because of the fact that she's not going to her preschool anymore. And so when you look at how my time stacks up, you can see this is doubled because it's 30-minute in intervals. So basically what this is saying is I work 6 hours a day. I supposedly sleep 8 hours a day. I'm not sure that that's actually accurate, but anyway, I watch my daughter for 7 hours, right, a day, because again, it's doubled up because it's for every 30 minutes. I eat for 1 hour a day. I have 1.5 hours of leisure time, and I have zero point 0.5 hours of grooming, whatever that entails. So that's what my schedule looks like. So does anybody have questions first about that before you start filling out your own?
Do we have to have like all of that stuff that you have?
No, no, this is my life. You have to go according to your life. So if you wake up at 5:30, that's when your rest ends. And then if you exercise for 2 hours, then you put that in. If you are going to work, you put in whatever you do on a Monday through Sunday. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do want to put something for every 30-minute increment. So yeah, after a while, it just goes back to sleeping, because by 11 o'clock, I try to go to sleep, right? So do put something in for every half an hour. And the whole point of the exercise is for you to start to realize that maybe you're even unclear as to what you are doing in some of these time frames, and then that's helpful to know. If you have to leave something blank, then leave it blank if you really don't know what you are doing at a particular time, because then that might help you to find blocks of time that you could be doing, something else, or to check on yourself to see, what am I actually doing? When I think I'm doing schoolwork, am I doing something else? When I think I'm relaxing, am I actually just still doing schoolwork, and so on? Am I clear? Yeah, go ahead. Did someone want to ask a question, or did I just hear a noise? Okay, so let's have you guys take 20 minutes. I don't know that we'll go all the way to 12:45 today, so I'm not gonna give you a break. Just take 20 minutes and fill out this the sheet, and then we can talk afterwards about what people have found. Maybe there are gaps of time where you don't actually know what you're doing in that time, and that's okay. All right, so 20 minutes from now, so at about 12:12, you can hopefully be done.
Constantly.
Have you been going to bed early, you mean?
Yeah, like before I would sleep like a little late.
Okay, so
Like,
maintaining a specific and consistent bedtime, is that what you're saying?
yeah, like I just been more consistent with that.
Oh, I see. Okay, so not going. You're saying you don't want to go to bed so late so that you can wake up earlier?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
like
All right.
I usually sleep like at 2
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. Like just doing stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then of course you end up sleeping until really late in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then your day kind of shifts back by so many hours, and then you find that you have to go to bed at 2 every time because you still have to do all the stuff that you have to do in your day. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's during this time of lockdown, it's understandable that some of our routines go out the window because we don't necessarily need to be anywhere at like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Some of us, I mean, those people who have small children, the kids are up anyway, or if you have family members who have to go to work or you have to go to work. What I'll say is, this is something that if that's your goal, then you should maybe try it for a few nights and see if you feel better. Just as an aside, many studies have shown that quality sleep happens before midnight. So any sleep that you get after midnight, even if you sleep for 10 hours from midnight to 10 a.m., it's a totally different quality of sleep than you get if you go to bed before midnight. So you may actually find that even if you just shift your bedtime, no one's saying, oh, go to bed at 8 p.m., but if you shift your bedtime by 1 hour earlier for over a few nights, you can start getting into a routine of waking up a little bit earlier and getting some good rest, maybe, before midnight. Is that something that might be doable?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't do it every night. That's like,
No, I know. I mean, I'm not even calling you out. Don't worry. This is a safe space. This is just talking. So the point here is that you've identified something that you'd like to change, and I'm agreeing with you that it's something that might be helpful, but it's difficult to make a drastic change. Last night I went to bed, let's say at 1 a.m. Now suddenly tonight I'm going to bed at 10 p.m. I may not even feel tired, you know? So instead of 1 a.m., maybe I'll do midnight, and then maybe I'll do 11, like that, incrementally, you know?
mm-hmm.
So think about it. Other findings, guys, or things that you want to change or keep from this time that we're in lockdown, or looking at the next 4 weeks. until the last day of class. What would you like to change, if anything, about how you spend your time? Now is the time to share a little bit with us. What did you find?
Hello.
Yes,
Um,
Anastasia.
so I'm finishing my schedule tracker, and I noticed that most of my time when I'm not having a class or it's a deadline to do some schoolwork,
Yeah.
I'm just wasting my time. So it's like
Mhm.
either social media, or in the evening it's usually TV.
Mhm.
And I feel like, yeah, definitely need to make a more serious schedule for daytime, because right now we have so much time. We don't have so many obligations, like going to work and like balancing work and school, commuting and all of that. So I noticed that really a lot of my time just going to waste because I don't need to do a lot of things. I don't have this need.
Yeah, there's no pressure, external pressure, right, for you
Yeah,
to
so
be here or be there or do this or
I
do
am
that.
definitely lacking of discipline for sure, and I will try to change it. Like before I was doing a little bit better in the beginning. I think that like I created myself some schedule about other studies, not only LaGuardia, but for example Spanish or something else on the side. And now I totally forgot about it, and I yeah, distracted.
Yeah, I mean it's human nature, because the remember we spoke about the distracted. We're all kind of in a little bit of an emotional state and drained from being indoors all the time on lockdown and so on, and so we're seeking some type of, I guess, maybe distraction, even seeking a distraction just to keep us entertained in some way, or even connected, to other people in some way. So I think a few points about what you're saying are very critical and useful to the rest of us. One, you said, initially when we went to distance learning, or when we went on the pause, as they call it, you were finding that you were kind of still keeping up with keeping a proper schedule, but the longer we stay on this, the easier it is maybe for things to fall by the wayside, which I think is totally normal, for most people, because it's just like it just feels like it's going on forever. So there's going to be no urgency to maybe complete the other tasks and things that aren't as that don't have as much of a deadline, as you said before. I would say don't put too much pressure on yourself to be like super productive at night also, if you are doing a lot of things during the day. But you are right to actually make sure that your daytime is being spent appropriately. Like, in other words, decide when your heavy times are going to be for work, and then you should have time for relaxation as well. So I guess I'm just cautioning not to go to the other extreme now, where every minute needs to be scheduled out for something. You should have time for relaxing, but it could be relaxing in other ways, like you're saying, not just with TV or with social media, but also possibly connecting with people, having video calls. Or if you don't feel like connecting with people, maybe you decompress by reading a book, or you go back to your Spanish studies if that's something that you enjoy. So the intentionality, I think, of a schedule is what helps for you to be able to think in advance of how you could use the time that you do have in a way that is actually building you up, and maybe even lifting your spirits. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's totally right. Like I'm trying to not be hard on myself, definitely, and I'm not like chasing to be productive all the time, but still I understand that I can be like managing my time
Better.
better.
Yeah, and that's exactly that's the whole point. For some of us, some people are just masters at this. I know I'm not one. I don't do well with a whole lot of empty time that I'm supposed to fill. I have to be able to structure it out, otherwise I'll just waste time. So I agree with you that having a schedule allows you to incrementally improve the way that you manage your time, without necessarily maybe putting super amounts of pressure on yourself to not do all this stuff. but you may find, because you even say you're not working, whatever, you may find that there are even opportunities to work remotely that you didn't know about, you know, if you focus your attention maybe a little bit more on other things, you know, besides what we all do often is, you know, TV and social media. So thank you so much for sharing that. You're definitely not alone in doing this. And I think for you and for the rest of us, we need to be thinking about, you know, even just week by week or just for the next 4 weeks until the end of school, how can we really buckle down and make sure that we're meeting all our deadlines and things so that we can finish the semester strong despite all the challenges that have come up. All right. Thanks for sharing that. You know, to the rest of the folks, you may still be busy with your time tracker, or you may already be done and you're comfortable with it, or you're not comfortable with it. I would just say, like Anastasia and Jeremy were bringing up, maybe 1 or 2 goals you could think of how you maybe want to change something small, if anything, between now and you know, the end of the semester. It might be something as simple and difficult as Jeremy was talking about, of just going to bed earlier so that you just feel more rested every day, so that you can actually tackle your assignments and things from a position of feeling a little bit more energetic. And, you know, also just think about, does your, and Anastasia, I think, brought this point up implicitly, does your time tracker reflect what you actually value, right? So if you say, I value school and I value my family or whatever, I value work, when you're looking at it, is that actually what's coming to the fore, or is it something else, you know, that you didn't expect? And so, you know, in this way, you can think, this tracker is now for how you think you spend your time. But I would even encourage you, if you want to, you know, in the coming week now from tomorrow, to look at what you said you normally do on a Wednesday and actually look to see if that's what you're doing. Or later today, you know, if you said after this class you're doing all these things, is that what you're actually doing? And if it is, then great. And if it isn't, then maybe that's not a realistic you know, allocation of your time, and you have to think about what you're actually doing and whether that is as productive as it can be. Any final thoughts before I go over some tools and the reflection with you?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Any final thoughts about the tracker? Okay, so sounds like people are.
Is it something that we're doing for ourselves, or we have to submit it?
You're doing it for yourself and you have to submit it. Both can be true, right?
On Blackboard?
It's not on Blackboard. I'm going to go over the instructions now. When you meet with Jessica, you will do the reflection, and you'll upload the reflection and the tracker in one space on the ePortfolio.
Okay.
All right. Did you find anything interesting, Tanisha, besides whether you need to submit this or not?
Well, my hours are pretty just off. Only my work hours are stable, I guess.
Yeah, and everything else is kind of floating.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I mean, I guess I have to make some adjustments so I have some stability.
So you might see some adjustments coming over the next few weeks to be able to finish up the semester. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes.
All right. Well, we try to hold each other accountable. I'll be checking in for the next 3 meetings, or however many meetings we have until we're done. I'll be checking in with you guys to find out how your time tracking is going. The last thing that I wanted to show you, and we don't have to go in depth with this because you can also look at this when you are in the studio hour. First of all, in the same document, time management, activity and resources, I give you the place in the ePortfolio where you have to upload the time tracker right? So, you know, when everything shut down here, my e-portfolio also went away. So I'm not going to waste your time to go back in because Jessica will show you anyway. But it's in the core e-portfolio under my coursework, under first year seminar for business. There's actually a dedicated space that says managing my time. And there you will upload the tracker and you will also finish the reflection. And the reflection is very basic. I'll go over it with you in a second here. I just also wanted to highlight that there are some apps, time management apps and tools that I kind of pasted here that you guys can consider whether you would like to use them. One of them is, you know, just to give you an idea of how they work. Some of them about finding time that, just like Tanisha was saying now, my time is kind of fluid, so you might be able to find time that you didn't know you had to do certain things that rescue my time. Remember the milk? My husband uses this a lot. It's basically a way to, it's an app to help you to remember tasks and things that you may, under normal circumstances, forget. A few people were talking about struggling to focus. This Pomodoro technique is a very well-known technique that has you basically timing yourself. Like I was talking to Jeremy last time about how you time yourself on a particular task, and then when that time is up, you move on to the next task. Sometimes you can make the time frame or the increments as small as 20 minutes. So you spend 20 minutes doing something, the stopwatch goes off, and you have to move on to the next thing. So remember we spoke about procrastination and creating a sense of urgency. Sometimes we actually have to, in a way, if you could call it, fake a sense of urgency by setting up systems for ourselves that will, you know, really make us feel like, whoa, there's so much pressure now to get this done. So let's say I'm saying I'm actually busy writing an article at the moment, and I'm not feeling as motivated to do it because I still have a lot of time to do it, but I also know that it needs to get done. So what I'm doing is I'm setting a stopwatch to say 30 minutes. You're writing for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you have to stop. It's creating a very deep sense of urgency in me to write as much as possible in the 30 minutes. So that's what the Pomodoro technique is. And you don't have to download this app necessarily to do the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique, you can just use the stopwatch on your phone to do it. There's also Evernote, which is another one where you can help with your productivity. The last one that I'll highlight, it's just because I'm familiar with these things, is Trello, which is like a project management app. It's also free. Basically, it has your work set up into 3 columns. What do you have to do, what's in progress, and what's completed. And as things move through the columns, you know, it's almost like Post-it notes that are moving from one column to the next. So you will always be able to, sorry for the interruption, you'll always be able to keep track of your work. So those are some of the tools that you may want to consider using. If you feel like, oh my word, here's just another thing that I have to learn, that's fine. Then use your own method. You just saw my Fresh Direct reminder came up because I just use Google Calendar to remind me about things I need to do. Otherwise, I will never remember everything I have to do. And if I don't order my food at a particular time, then we won't have food for the next week because it's, you know, it's like the Hunger Games out there trying to get any type of food from online delivery. Okay, so those are the tools. They are on this document that is on Blackboard if you are interested. And then I'll just go over the reflection. It was supposed to be due on May the 3rd, but because we went over time with the with the financial literacy stuff, I postponed this to May the 10th. It's 5% of your grade. I know that sounds high, but honestly, if we read this, you'll see that it's going to be a very easy 5% that you can get. And I'm grading, you know, very lightly the semester because I know that people are in a lot of, you know, there's a lot going on. Again, this work is going to go under my coursework, first year seminar for business managing my time. Make sure you click publish changes. You're just writing a brief essay that basically is asking some of the questions we just went over, right? How do you track your time? Do you believe you have a good idea of how you spend your time? How has your time management changed? You see how it's the same questions, right? Since LaGuardia went to distance learning, what is one positive discovery you made while entering your time on the time tracker? What's next negative, consider your discoveries, right? And what changes you might have to make. Do you have a daily schedule? A lot of these questions you've already answered for me, but I want you to document it so that it's in a place where you can go back to it, so that when I ask you every week, how's it going, we have a record of how you're doing or what you thought you were doing. What two benefits might there be of keeping a daily schedule? We were talking about this just now. Anastasia was saying, it helps to see how you're actually spending your time, especially in the evening. Review one or two of the resources available for time management. That's the stuff over here that I was talking about. How can you or have you used this resource, or how will you track your time going forward, and what might be a long-term benefit of accurately tracking your time? So that's the reflection, and this reflection you will be able to work on Thursday. You should probably be able to finish it during the studio hour, and you can just write the answers in the e-portfolio and upload your tracker, and then that's the end of the requirements for time management. Does anybody have any clarification questions? Yeah.
No.
Right. Jeremy, you're very helpful answering almost every question. So, okay, so that's it for now. I don't have anything else to share. Any materials that we use today. If you can't find it, like if you suddenly don't know where to find the time management reflection, Jessica will have it, but you also find everything on the Zoom call materials. I'm hoping, guys, that that this exercise was of some help to you. My aim for the semester has been to try and do things that are actually going to be relevant and helpful in the crisis that we find ourselves in. If you have other questions for me, or anything that you want to talk about, I'll stay on the line for the next 10 or so minutes, since that's the end of the class. Just a heads up, next week we'll be talking about what employers are looking for in employees in, I guess, a pre and post COVID world, and we'll also be looking at resumes. If you have a resume, please have it handy. If you don't have one, that's okay, because I'll come with sample resumes. But my aim for the session next week is to try and get us to work on, I guess, refining your resume and getting it as polished as possible, so that as the, I guess, opportunities arise to work remotely for those who are interested, that you might actually have a solid resume to present. And for those who feel that their resume is solid, you may be able to take that time to work on your LinkedIn profile. All right, so that's what's coming up next week. As I said, I'm on the line if anybody wants to talk to me about anything. Otherwise, go and have a lovely day and stay well.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, you're
Have
welcome.
a good day, Professor.
You too. Bye-bye.
Professor,
Okay.
be safe.
Alexis, I didn't see that you were still on. Are you still there, Alexis? Okay. I'll just chat with you.